Hey everyone, welcome. Thank you for being here. My name is Tina. This is the Alignment Keys, and on this channel, I bring forward celebrities who have crossed over to the other side. And what I like to do is I like to show you, with guidance from them, their soul contract and how it played out for them in their lives. So if you're new to the channel, thank you for stopping by. Thank you to everyone who's been with me and who keeps watching. It is very much appreciated, the support. And so today, I don't want to waste much time in getting right to it. I'm bringing forward just this beautiful, wonderful energy, wonderful soul of Naomi Judd of the Judds. Approximately 4 months ago, she crossed over to the other side and she had taken her own life. So she decided herself to go back to spirit. And I do want to show you how that was playing out in her soul contract. And, she is, so there was a lot of emotion when she came through, more emotion than I have felt with any other celebrity, because again, this is fairly new. She hasn't had crossed over for very long. I had her come up a few months ago, but I still wanted to give it time to process because there was still a lot of sadness there. And so we're going to try to get through this video without being way too emotional, because again, she had a lot of emotions to process here during this lifetime. And she was, as we know, she struggled with mental, with depression and mental illness. And it became, I will also show you that in her chart as well, because that is definitely in there. So we're going to kind of talk a little bit about that. And but like I said, once the souls, I just want you to understand that once the souls cross over to the other side, they see things very clearly. She isn't struggling with the mental illness clarity part anymore. Now she's still in the learning process, and she will continue her work on, just from the other side. So it doesn't stop once we transition back over. We still work through our family and do what we can for others. And she was this big proponent of really a natural healer. We'll show you that in her chart as well. And if you don't know much about Wynona, that was her daughter, Naomi, she again was part of the Judds with her daughter. She was the famous American country singers, with her daughter, and they were very just, kind of made it big very quickly once they got going, and not that they didn't put work in, but they were known for writing a lot of these wonderful songs. Love Can Build a Bridge is one of their most prolific songs that they wrote, and one of the most popular songs. I have quite a few that I liked, actually. Do remember, they were very popular in the 80s and 90s. And then Naomi did get hepatitis C. And then we're going to talk a little bit about that as well, because I always talk about the emotional side of any physical manifestation that we have. As far as illness goes, there's always this emotional component. So we're going to also talk about that. So again, I don't want to get too much into it without bringing up her soul contract, as I always do in my videos. So I'm going to share that with you. So there is the beautiful Naomi. She was just this China doll. I would have to say, in my opinion, I always thought she was extremely beautiful, and I know beauty is different for every person. And I thought her daughter was also very beautiful in a different way. But Naomi was very, very feminine beauty, loved loved her voice, her singing, her energy, because she was this incredible natural healer. So let's get into her chart, this very sensitive, brilliant soul that we had. And I also do want to say, as I always do, I put if you want to know more about how I put the charts together, the history behind the soul contract and what that means. And, just I have a short introductory video. I always put it in the description box. So if you want to check it out, I always put a link to my website if you want to check out the services that I provide as well. Please go there and check me out if you get a chance as well, if you're interested in that. But I do like to bring forward the messages, because this is about sharing their messages with the world. It's definitely something that I feel very honored to be able to do, and was just very inspired to do this. And it's been going very well. I mean, as far as different celebrities coming through that want to bring forward their messages, because they want to continue to help others from the other side, because they know, right, how hard this journey is. And it doesn't matter if you become famous or you have a lot of wealth. That, again, everybody has their struggles. Nobody gets out of here and on easy street. We're all struggling with a lot of the same dilemmas, no matter where we are in our ascension process. So I do want to make note of that. This isn't about putting celebrities on a pedestal. This is bringing forward their humanness, what they were experiencing, how the charts played out. I'll talk a little bit, since I'm all about the alignment keys, what based on what they're struggling with in their chart, what the recommendations would be, as far as their healing process. And Naomi was obviously going through therapy. She had been put on some pretty powerful drugs, because she was diagnosed with, it was called it was a type of depression where they call it, it doesn't do well with normal treatment. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. So let's, get into her chart here a little bit. Again, she was not born with the name Naomi Judd, which is very interesting. Again, she was born with Diana Ellen Judd, and because she was born in the South, she was really drawn to this name of Naomi, and she felt it had more a Southern ring to it. And she was telling me she just was very inspired to change her name. And that does happen. I've talked about that on this channel. I will be offering name optimization at some point on my, as part of my services, because if people are overly struggling with because your birth name is what you bring forward. It's what resonates. It's what brings, the birth chart is what drives your primary, these primary energies, these numbers here that I always talk about. And so you can never get away from that with your birth name. But if you can think of the birth name as the cake, if you what we call optimizing your name, or changing either parts of your name, like she kept Judd and she changed her first name to Naomi, that can bring in some different vibrations to help you work through some of your other numbers. So, and, we talk about that, we can talk about that in a couple of different ways. You see a lot of celebrities that change their name. That's very normal. They take a stage name. And so part of that is very inspired for them to work through their chart. Like David Bowie was one, that I did, one of the first charts I did, and he had that name change. And it's to help, like I said, for them to work through mainly the karmic side of your chart. So when we talk about karma, I want to be very clear that karma is our opportunities for growth. This is not a punishment that was bestowed upon you for past bad behavior, anything like that. You choose your karma. And what your karma is things experiences that are going to come to you, and all of the experiences can be considered positive and negative. These would be more of the negative. And why would we want negative experiences? Why would we come here for that? And it's because that's how we learn quicker. You can't learn to true empathy or true compassion without having to go through some of these hardships or whatever you decided to choose in your karma. And I like to try to go through that in each of these charts. And so with the charts, we also have a physical side to our chart, like I always talk about, and that kind of plays out right away from the beginning. And then as we get older, we start to pull, and people, it happens at different ages, and it depends on how many lifetimes you had, where you're at in your ascension chart, how difficult your chart is that you chose, your soul family plays a part. I also, will be working on looking, if you're interested in having a personal reading and reading how your family interacts with your charts and what that's all about. So again, it's a little bit more complicated than just your birth chart. It's you have a soul family, and you guys collaborate on your best lessons for your best growth in each incarnation. And so that's how it plays out, so I'm going to start with the physical chart. We have our karma and your talents you're given. So once you activate your talents, once you learn some of your lessons from your physical karmic side, then you start to activate these talents, which help you to achieve your physical goals. And we have a physical goal, we have a spiritual goal, and we have our soul destiny, which kind of culminates all of the numbers, kind of your overall what you were hoping to get out of this lifetime. And so we want to start with Naomi's physical karma, because this was a very tough karma. Karmas, none of them are easy. Some are a little bit harder than others, but this one is really about her being really brought up with some very rigid religious beliefs. And that was by design, because it's meant for you to start questioning those beliefs so that you can start to explore other avenues of spirituality, that it isn't just, Christianity or Buddhism, or that it goes a little deeper. But the initial part of the physical karma is, I'm going to grab my notes just to make sure that I don't miss anything. As I get talking, sometimes I can get carried away. And as I'm trying to listen to the energy of the person that we're bringing through to help guide me through the chart, I'm being directed to my notes here. And so we want to talk about that religious beliefs and being raised. Now, her mom was very strict with religion. Her husband, who she was married to for quite a few years, was the son of a preacher. They were both, still upholding those Christian, I believe she was Catholic, I believe. I'm not 100% positive about that. And so that was by design. And again, like I said, it's about you being kind of steeped in that religious beliefs, those programs, so that you can break out. Now, I do want to mention that you can see she has a lot of 2s in her chart, and that makes her very super sensitive. Not to mention that she has 8s, which is another level of sensitivity in a different way. We'll get to that in a moment. But again, this makes her a very sensitive soul. And so she, so this would be, she would fluctuate with her moods. She would have very highs and very lows, because this too, with this spring here, is all about her managing her emotional body and learning how to do that. As she started to work through her physical side, she was doing pretty well with that. And then when we hit into the spiritual side, things got a little bit wonky, and we'll talk about that as well. And then how things were starting to get a little out of balance for her, and maybe why that was based on the energies of her chart. The 20-2 is also tied to movement, and it's about flexibility. She struggled a little bit with flexibility. She liked to, she didn't like to, again, this is part of that energy because it's meant for you to overcome it. She struggled a little bit with her flexibility as far as being, she would want to stay in her bus and not want to venture out. And, they would have a hard time getting her to do new things because, again, if you have this in talents, it's a beautiful energy because it creates a lot of movement and exploration energy. I remember the crocodile hunter, Steve Irwin, had this. I think he had it in his goals. And so it made him this explorer. And so what this is trying to get Naomi to do is to become more flexible in her beliefs and more flexible in her thinking, in her way of being. And of course, she has a lot of emotional things going on here. So again, very tough for her to, again, learn this emotional mood swings. So when she would get very depressed, she would not have any movement, because this is about movement. When you have it in karma, it will push you to not want to do anything. And so what does she need to do? She needs to have movement. And that means even taking a 10-minute walk a day, whether, she said she would stay in bed for days, that she was so brought down by that energy that it would take her that low. So again, this is not judgment for that. This is, again, these energies can be very difficult, and it depends on how well you've activated your talents. Now she has 6s in talents, and this is this great creativity. We call it, this symbol is a convertible knot, making something from nothing. It gives her this, she would have been obviously as creative she was with her songs and her music. And it's really about her learning. She was given this talent to be able to focus and be creative. So what it was doing was giving her the talent to be focused and creative, to kind of move her out of this energy of this inflexibility. So obviously she was super creative, especially in the visual arts. They are with 6s, and she was with their costumes and the colors, like her hair and her makeup and everything was just like this visual smorgasbord. Her and Wynona, they just had this beautiful, it was visually beautiful as well as sound beautiful, right? I mean, it was just, so that was definitely her talent. This makes her really good in business because it gives her that focus for business. So I would believe that she was, and I read, and she had, we were doing some channeling. And so she was kind of the driving force initially behind the business between her and Wynona, obviously with her being the mom. And so she had this great natural ability for business to be focused in that area, where again, she was struggling with all these tools, was the emotion, the moods, the mental part, where again, that she could have these real highs. You could just see, especially when because she has a 10-1, and we'll get to that spiritual side, she is considered a servicer. So when she was singing and when she was feeling that energy from the audience, it really brought her up. It really helped to elevate her vibration, her mood. She could really play off of that with her manifestations. And that was super, super important. So her physical goals was all about her building a structure of something, a business, which they did through their music, body of work she was doing through her writing and giving, because she has this, your spiritual numbers also play that underlying role in our lives. And so besides the fact that she was supposed to build some type of a business, the spiritual aspect for her was to be of service, and that meant to try to help other people. She's a natural healer with 10-1 in her talents, and she originally had gone into nursing, which makes total sense that she was, again, building her own body of knowledge. She was a very much an open book here, and that's why a lot of people didn't get her. You know, even she had struggled with her relationship with Wynona, and that's all by design, because they were very different charts, and Wynona had a hard time understanding her because they were on different frequencies, and that's, again, all by design, to help us to break out of these molds, to bring us into more unity consciousness, to bring us more compassionate about others, more. That's why we're all so diverse. It's for us to learn that. It's not meant for all of us to just be carbon copies of one another. So, and again, this 11-2 in her physical goals is all about Venus energies. And you could see she was this great beauty, and she has it in both of her goals. This wonderful, my own daughter has this as well. And she's very beautiful. Beautiful eyes, because Venus is tied to the eyes, and Naomi had very, very beautiful eyes as well. And I noticed when she was little, she had glasses, and that can be, she had a lot of trauma. This again is part of this 20-2, which is a lot of suppressed childhood trauma. She was molested by her great uncle when she was a child. She did have glasses. I noticed she was wearing glasses, and that it's because 11-2s are so sensitive. It's really hard for them to see the world as it really is, that ugliness. They want to see things as the beauty, you know, that Venus energy is beautiful. And so that's when we can end up with glasses, or, you know, because it's all physical, you know, physical manifestations of injuries or eye issues, that's all tied to emotional concepts. So that was tied directly to that emotional, you know, and her, again, giving her the religious connotation to all of that would give her a lot of inner conflict as well. And that can also manifest in your outer world. And this was, you know, a little bit with her one daughter, Wynona, because it ends up being more conflict with family members. And it's all meant, again, for you to break out and to learn to accept people as they are, not how you want them to be, because we tend to want people to be how we think they should be and not how they really are. And again, that's being able to see people. And so she was bringing forward that she can see that now. And they were working through that. They were building, you know, she said they were kind of working, they were more estranged towards her death, but they kind of went back and forth, her and her daughter. Now, she did get pregnant at the age of 18. Again, something that I can really resonate as I went through that experience. And I also have a similar relationship with my daughter. Yeah, I have two daughters as well, like Naomi, and my younger daughter is more like me, like Ashley was more like Naomi. My older daughter is different, much more different than me by design, and I know that now from the soul contracts, and I can see. And what I really admired about Naomi and Wynona is that they were using a therapist to work through some of that trauma, and how Naomi understood that she did the best she could at the time, but she wasn't a very conscious mother. And I had to go through the same thing. There's a lot of shame and guilt that comes along with that when you start to realize that, oh, I made a lot of mistakes raising my children. And when you start to become conscious of that, it's very painful, because you see that your children do carry some of those patterns. That's very normal. Naomi was very aware of this mood imbalances were part of an ancestral DNA patterning. I've talked about that. Kurt Cobain was one who was struggling with that as well. And I had one also in my lineage, because what happens is we pick some of the similar energies, our ancestors and our soul family, and we may come many lifetimes to work on that, and it does actually get into our DNA. And so there was a lot of suicide and a lot of issues. And Naomi was identifying it. She's very even though she was maybe not super conscious of it, she did bring forward a lot of knowledge, because she was like, hey, she was talking, to her daughters about it. This is a pattern that you guys need to understand what's going on in the family, because this is something that we've been struggling with. And so you need to be aware of it so that you're not falling into the same patterning. And of course, Naomi was struggling because her dad left as well when she was younger, which was very disempowering. That also comes from this 10-1, because the 10-1 is very much about balancing the masculine and feminine, I talk about, but we can get a lot of disempowerment from the masculine. And of course, with her great uncle molesting her, this was very disempowering from her. It also played on our 3s. When we have a 3, it's all about your self-worth. And so 3s can manifest abuse because it's part of them learning how to come out of the canal and be able to express their true feelings. So it's very important when Naomi was starting to verbalize this abuse, starting to talk about it, starting to come out of the canal to really get into her feelings. However, when you have this many 2s and you struggle with your mood imbalances, it's very hard for someone as sensitive as Naomi to really get into her feelings. And having 8s in your karma is really all about Naomi wanting to go back home spiritually. This brings in a level of, I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this. This is a high frequency soul. And in karma, it's very much having a hard time relating to society, even though you're meant to fit in and bring something to society, as with this 11-2 in physical goals, where it really was about her bringing forward and sharing this body of work with others, whether it was writing her songs and singing them or just writing her book about depression. That's what she was meant to do. Now the 8s and karma will block that. It also can put people in this is a very high frequency soul, so it's hard for them in this 3D dense world, because at such a high frequency, it drains them of energy. So having this very inflexible number here, then her struggling with, and the mood swings, and this, is really also about light, dark, good, bad. And so you can have issues with, she talked about taking care of herself. So you can definitely not take care of the body. You can have, they struggle maintaining a home and keeping themselves up when they really, so as she got older, remember, her spiritual side started to come into play. And so then this number here started to play out a little more for her. And I think this is where she maybe started to really struggle with her depression, is because, again, you start to get that karmic side so that you can start to work through it and activate your talents. And these talents are beautiful energy. This is all about balance, finding balance in your life. And again, between the masculine and the feminine. And again, she really was trying to find that balance. She understood that it was really important. And so this is all tied to the mind as well, the divine mind. So she was bringing in a little bit of the negative, because you can, even in your talents, bring in some negative of the negative. And she was struggling with the divine, that connection to source and knowing what was real and what wasn't. And that can happen with people with 10-1s. And if you look at, I did Robin Williams, he had the most unusual chart I'd ever seen. He had 5 10-1s. And so he ended up also committing suicide. He had some 8s in his current names, which added to this level of depression as well. And then he also ended up committing suicide. And so, and that can happen there. Like I said, there's no judgment. I don't even know, when I talk to people from the other side about suicide, because I had my daughters father also committed suicide. And it's so hard for the people that are left here because, again, we develop cords, as I'll call them, with other people. And when they cross over unexpectedly like that, you have to remember that those cords are just ripped out of you. And it is so painful. And I have nothing but compassion and empathy for Naomi's two daughters, because it is so painful to lose your mom like that. We all know that, she was 73. That's not exceptionally old. And they knew she was struggling with suicidal thoughts and depression. But again, it doesn't make it any, very traumatic for Ashley having to find her. And in that condition, it's just, that's where the sadness was coming that I was feeling from the energy. And so, like I said, this 10-1 is actually a pretty powerful talent if you can work through. She was still struggling, though, with this inflexibility here, again, she was doing traditional therapy, not seeking and exploring other avenues. It's not saying there isn't anything wrong with traditional therapy. A disclaimer here, I'm not a medical professional. This is not medical advice. But it's really important when I see people with these numbers for them to explore other avenues. And she was telling me that one of the negative side of the 6s, as she wanted me to mention, is that it's a very stubborn energy. And it causes you to be very stubborn. And so even though she wasn't getting better and they were trying all of these different medications, they weren't really working. I mean, she tried electroshock therapy. She tried a lot of these, what I would consider old traditional ways. And what this number is trying to get you to do is to break out and try new avenues. And that would have been different forms of transcendental meditation, yoga for her, grounding energies, because the 8s can make you very ungrounded, where you're, again, with these 2s, you're very ungrounded. Your moods are going all over the place because you're this open book and you're absorbing all these energies from people, because 11-2s can make you very much an open book. And if you don't know where your energy begins and others begin, can make you very codependent on other people, on your assistants, on your husband. And all of a sudden you turn into this child rather than being an empowerment. And she wanted me to make that very clear, that we all have the capacity to pick ourselves up by our bootstraps and to really go with and to find the answers. We're all given that ability. And I thought it was really, so her 12-3 in Soul Destiny was really about her learning how to achieve balance in her emotional, spiritual, and sexual expression in this lifetime. So, and it was important for her to do as much as she also could in her lifetime. So she would feel very rushed. She would also have too many things going on, because 12-3s tend to do all the time. And so they need to learn how to slow down. But the problem is that she would do, and she would wipe herself out, and it would almost incapacitate her. And then she would lay on the couch for a month at a time, because she would go from all of this to, to the touring, to her shows, to nothing. And so for her, she was still struggling, trying. 12-3s and 10-1s are all about finding the balance. So she was struggling. Her book was titled River of Time. And so I wanted to say river, the symbolism of that, because river is, 2s are all about that. It's moon energy. It's very about cycles, learning how to let go of the past, something she really struggled with. Like I said, that letting go of that guilt, that shame, those lower emotions. 8s are also about learning how to feel your emotions so that you can transmute them. And so even though we have a lot of talk therapy, 8s will avoid feeling things because they think it will be too much for them. So again, that was part of what she was struggling. And so she needed to have more bite-sized chunks. Again, this 8s can kind of push her to 10-1s can then avoidance of the self. And that was kind of playing out. She was really avoiding spiraling in her mind, so we want to make sure that, again, that's where meditation is a tool, because it teaches you how your mind is supposed to work, because we're so programmed and things are getting better. And she wants to say, hey, things are getting better. There's more information out there. And she's so happy to know that is, there's more information, there's more alternative therapies. And she would highly recommend, if you're not happy with your current therapy, to seek other alternatives. You can continue to stay with it, but still be seeking other alternatives. I mean, things work almost in conjunction. I would never poo-poo, the medical society, because there's a reason that we've discovered so many different wonderful ways to treat people. But if something is not working for you, she really wants you to know to not give up and to be diligent about taking it as your responsibility. Not, again, these 11-2s can allow other people to kind of take over for us, and we think they're the expert. Nobody knows us better than we know ourselves. And so we have to take, again, it's about taking your power back. I talk about this a lot, and making sure that we're taking responsibility for our life, for what happens to us. And that includes our healing journey, because we are all on a healing journey here. And there's no judgment for Naomi. She picked a very hard chart. She learned a lot of great lessons. She's coming through with nothing but great love and understanding for everybody going through similar experiences. And this is not saying there's an easy fix. Again, it's just, mind is super important, especially, this 10-1 being tied to the divine mind. It's very powerful. And, again, like I said, in her having this karmic side, this inflexibility, where she struggled being flexible in her moods and in her, how she wanted to approach things. So again, she had a great love for animals. That comes from that being that high frequency soul, because she relates to animals, because animals are very high frequency. And so they tend to relate better than they do to humans. And I think we could see that obviously with her. If you watched any of the reality shows about her and Wynona, and she had a lot of animals on her farm, and she just lived in this wonderful paradise. But like I said, that doesn't, having money and having everything you think you want, there's still so much inner work. And she had so much trauma. It's so heart-wrenching that for her, I have nothing but compassion and empathy from her as well. So her, again, she would be a little bit distorted with that, this energy of 8s as far as healthy relationships, because 8s can kind of have this love model going on in their heads. I've talked about it before. It's a little bit hard to describe, but how if you kind of watch like fairy tales and things, it's not really true to real life. I know I can get involved in a really good Pride and Prejudice. I watched that recently, and I just love that movie. I don't know if any of you guys have watched it, but it is pretty awesome. And I can really fall into that trap too, of being a little bit unrealistic about what real relationships are in the 3D world. And it's a lot of give and take, and it's a lot of forgiveness and understanding and compassion and empathy, and not having someone sweep us off our feet, or being a certain role. And sometimes we can think how we should love instead of opening our heart and loving from our heart. And she wanted me to point that out as well, that we all kind of struggled with that in the times that we lived in. But I do want to get to some of these cards that we're going to pull, because she's guiding me in that direction. And so the first one, I'm doing the Spirit Animal Oracle. And the other thing I wanted to mention about this picture is that, how beautiful she is. But there's a little bit of a sadness behind the eyes and the smile here, and from the energy that I got. But I did like this picture. That's why I put it, because, again, people you know, this 11-2 and the moods and stuff. We make this pretty picture of how we think things should be. And, but inside we're struggling. And so she wanted me to point that out as well. And I'm going to stop sharing because we're going to get into pulling the cards. And so the first one I have is the 1, and we talked about that 10-1 in her chart, being of the divine mind. And this is Ant Spirit. So this is all about time to collaborate. And so she's giving us, you know, putting the pieces together, not settling for the status quo. Things aren't getting better. Reach out, collaborate with others, because putting together the minds of a whole bunch of people is better than relying. Again, we all know, right, what was best for us, but there are times when collaboration is best. And so she's saying that she could have done more of that collaboration and putting the puzzle pieces together to figure out what would work for her, because we're all different. And I'm not saying it's a one size fits all answer for her journey here, but it's again, she's coming forward to bring us messages that she wants to talk about. And so now I'm doing Keepers of the Light, because she was Christian and I think Catholic, if I remember right. So, okay, we have here Freya, and you see the moon. We talked about the 2s and that moon energy. And then we have the raven here, which is communication. And so phases and cycles on the 11-2 are also about cycles. And they play, you know, learning how cycles in life play out. So that's about learning to let go, that something's done, you need to move on. Don't beat it to death, as Abraham Hicks talks about. And they talked about love can build a bridge. Abraham Hicks will be, quit beating that old trauma drum, build some new pipes and cross over some of that. And so that's kind of what I'm getting to, what she wants to talk about here. So there is a beginning within every ending. Illusions are revealed and released. And then it's about getting clarity and then being able to release it. So 11-2s, that she had 2 of them in her goals, is all about cycles and of life. And 11-2s are also about learning to value life. And she did lose a sibling, I believe, pretty young. And again, you know, her dad left, and her mom, she doesn't remember her mom really giving her much love, because of course she was struggling, and people can only love you to their level of consciousness. So, but it makes it difficult when it's a parent. Another thing that I resonate very much with Naomi, you know, having a child at 18, trying to make it on your own. You know, she had the 3 in her chart, which is poverty. She was imprinted with poverty consciousness. So it's, you know, things don't come easy when you have that. And so the next card we get is play. Isn't that beautiful? And there's like this glass of champagne almost, and the lady in the champagne glass, and it says, have fun, celebrate, don't be so serious. And there's a beautiful, it's like a swan in the sky. Yeah, I mean, this is all that we take life so seriously. That karmic side, when it's bringing in some of those negative energies, it's hard to remember to have fun and not get pulled down into that. It is, she knows more than anyone, right? But she's saying how important playing is. Playing, being present, being in the present moment. I mean, that is so, so critical. So the next thing she's bringing me, which I thought would be a really beautiful energy to bring forward. And again, she was, like I said, she had all the 2s in her chart, and that was all tied to the moon energy. And that's coming out again in this fairy deck that I love so much. And isn't this beautiful? This just, I see her as this now. I always see, she just was such like a fairy princess. Look to her. Okay, so we have moon energy. Surrender to the natural ebb and flow of life. If you're feeling confused, this fairy comes to calm emotions and reassure you that peace of mind is possible. So she's still, even though she you could say lost her battle with that struggle, she's still coming through to encourage, as she did writing her book talking about the depression. Although she wants me to mention Eckhart Tolle talks about this. Eckhart Tolle, and if you're not familiar with him, I highly recommend that you read the book The New Earth, because it talks about people like Naomi that are the most sensitive, that when they incarnate here, they carry a large pain body, and then how that can distort their life, but it's all meant for us to get a grasp on things. And Eckhart also struggled, was very close to committing suicide, and his book The New Earth really puts things in perspective and gives you some real tools on how to break out of the mind. He says 90% of suffering happens in the mind. It's not anything that's ever happened to us, because we keep replaying old traumas. We keep hanging on to those things. Joe Dispenza is another one who's really great about putting it in from a scientific perspective about how we get up in the morning and our mind is already in what happened yesterday. And so once we keep in that same pattern, that's why we keep recreating the same things in our life, because it becomes a cycle. Remember, your thoughts eventually turns to things. We are not instant manifestors, but over a period of time, our consistent energy is what is bringing to us what we manifest. And so the charts will bring us stuff, but we don't have to keep creating it. It's meant for us to work out of it, and to, again, it's to elevate and to ascend. And so then your karma aspects actually get less and less as you start to learn your lessons, and you don't fall for those traps. You don't fall for that inflexibility, those old traumas that are coming back. So she definitely wanted to. The moon energy is big here. We had Freya. I'm going to pull another animal card she's asking for. So we are going to go to that. Again, that makes sense with her being such a and she wants you to understand that it's normal for us to, you're never going to not have anything bad happen, but how we react, that ebb and flow. She wants me to say ebb and flow. You got to ride the wave. She had that spring, the symbol of the two is a spring. So it's about riding the spring, balancing it out, letting it flow, but then letting it go. You have to let it flow, because once you get into the vibration of it, it takes 17 seconds, if you can remember that, 17 seconds to break this thought pattern. So sometimes I'll even count 1001 to 17, and then I'll do it again and again, and I'll reach for a more suitable thought. If I'm finding myself spiraling, something that happened at work, something went wrong, and you know how we can kind of spiral in our mind, and we'll play it over and over. Oh, if I should have done this, oh, I should have done that. And so it's really important, because it lowers our vibration and we get stuck, to break out of that pattern. And so now she's bringing forth the dragonfly spirit, the 22. Here's another 2-2, right? Again, that truth transcends illusion. So what is the truth? Sticking to the facts, sticking to the present. Okay, I made a mistake. How can I make sure it doesn't happen again? And then you move on, because everyone is part of our humanness. What was it trying to show me? Starting to ask the right questions. And my daughter and I had this really great conversation where she was digging a little bit deeper into what drives her, she was really going and doing some inner work, and I was really proud of her for that. And she was talking about, I'm starting to ask myself different questions instead of asking myself why this happened. asking bigger questions. What am I supposed to learn from this? What would this be showing me? Is this something that's repeating? Is this because of something I keep doing that it keeps happening again and again? So these are some of the things that we can do, just simple things, keeping a journal, writing down our thoughts at night, writing, keeping a gratitude journal, where Maya Angelou talks about that. She did a lot of writing poems, Oprah talks about that, the gratitude journal. Abraham Hicks, I talk about her, Esther Hicks channels Abraham. And so, how important gratitude is, that state of gratitude. And Betty White is a great video to watch for that too, because she was queen of gratitude, and how she didn't seek things. They found her because she learned how to be in this constant state of gratitude. I do plan on doing Michael Jackson. He's been kind of coming through off and on, and he was another one who could really reach for that childlike wow factor, which is wonderful in manifesting. So we're gonna do him here. And so I went to the secret language of light, and this came out of might have been my last reading as well. We talked about the soul tree. And so again, we're looking at the soul chart, right? And all of these components to it, and the tree of life. So we call it, the tree, we have the mother numbers, and then they gave birth to double numbers, and then and so this tree kind of is formed of our ascension. And I am going to read this. I think I might have done that in one of my other videos. So here's a 2 and a 1 again. We have nothing but 2s and 1s that have come out so far in this reading, and of course 2 and 1 adds up to 3. She had 3 in her soul destiny, and 3s are all about the master teacher number. So this again is a mastery. She is an older soul. When you have 12-3 in your soul destiny, it usually means you're really getting close to the end of your incarnation cycles, which is why part of your you're trying to accumulate as much knowledge as you can in this lifetime, because you're going to bring it all forward in the next one. So that's going to be pretty cool, what she's going to do, I'm sure, in her next incarnation, once she gets through the healing process here. So let's see what she wants me to talk about. Oh, and this is also about connecting to nature. So again, trees are great holders of wisdom and knowledge. Next time you are near a tree, try asking it what it would like you to know, and listen with an open heart for an inspired response. The same life force that animates you also flows through the trees. We are all in this together. Now imagine the trees are physical manifestation of angels. I do that now when I go on my walks. I have trees, and now they do look like angels, certain trees to me. Their divine essence flows deep into trees, as angels are far-reaching in their ability to help, care, and create. Trees, like angels, see and feel without judgment, always emitting an eternal stream of love. Allowing angelic tree energy to flow through you, sending roots deep into the ground, forming a solid foundation that enables you to reach higher and deeper into the light and soul of you. From this vantage point, you can sculpt your ideas and dreams to be planted upon the earth for you to enjoy through your physical senses. So she's recommending that you research the Kabbalah and the Tree of Life as another way to experience your spiritual self. So that is her recommendation, because she was supposed to be doing, part of her, what was trying to break her out, it was doing that more spiritual exploration. So she's giving you guys a little nudge to try to do some research. I'm going to as well, because I have not researched the Kabbalah either, and the Tree of Life. So I'm going to do that as well. I love that picture of the tree and the angel wings. I know she is such a bright light. And when somebody has 8s and they're spiritual, I mean, they're bringing, spirit here to help us. And whether or not she stayed, she's still, part of that lesson could be for her daughters to learn to value life. And that was part of their soul contract, we don't know. So like I said, I have no judgment, nothing but compassion and empathy for everybody. And, and for everyone, just, she wants to thank everybody for sending such great love. I mean, she's just overwhelmed, with how she was treated, when they sang. I mean, you could just see the love between her and Wynona. That was when they could really open up, was when they were singing, because singing, again, is another God. It's a connection to source. And it has to be with the intention, of course. Everything is about intention, right? And how you're intending it. But boy, they were just something spectacular. So we're going to end this with a healing mantra. I think it's very important because Naomi was trying to do she did quite a bit of healing in this lifetime. This lifetime was not for naught just because she ended up committing suicide. There's no judgment for that. She was welcomed with open arms. She understands where she was, that, again, there is no punishment for that. So don't believe any religion that tells you that is the case. So we have a mantra from Matt Kahn. He's the great, absolutely, if you don't know who Matt Kahn is, I would highly recommend you check his website out. I've taken quite a few Angel Academy classes with him, and as far as becoming a healer myself. So he's one of the greats. So we have balancing the brain. And so what we do with these mantras is we repeat them 3 times. And I encourage you over the next week to write this down and to do this as well. And so it's about balancing the brain. And the mantra is, I can be and do all at once. I can be and do all at once. I can be and do all at once. So let's go to his book. So for balancing the brain. So when the brain is balanced, you are no longer bouncing back and forth between being and doing. You allow each action to be expressed from a space of mindfulness, peace, and ease. In a balanced brain, each inner battle has been won, which makes it easier to navigate around those minds. It's easier to navigate around those whose minds are still entrenched in conflict. And she really wanted me to, again, she had the 20-2 in karma. That's a lot of inner conflict. She was meant to break out of that, to balance that brain out. So in a balanced brain, each inner battle has been won, which makes it easier to navigate around those whose minds are still entrenched in conflict. From this space, you are able to do all that needs to be done while operating from your soul's natural state of being. This mantra is ideal for reducing stress at work, being a more mindful parent, and increasing levels of accountability. Oh, thank you, Naomi. That was perfect. It was perfect for me in my life, as my work had extremely stressful, this energy that we've been in lately this year. This has been tough. I mean, we've had a couple years of the frequency's been raising. And so you're seeing a lot of people, the shadows coming out. I want to also mention with the 11-2s, they come here to do a lot of shadow work. So if you have 11-2s in your chart, there's going to be some shadow work you're going to be doing, regardless of if you want to or not. You chose it, and it's going to be part of the plan. And just because I've mentioned this before, as the planet raises in frequency, you're seeing a lot of the shadow side of a lot of people. You're seeing a lot of divisiveness, and that's all part of us working through the shadows. So it's all by design. And remember, out of chaos becomes Out of chaos comes calm, peace, organization. So it will get better. We go in cycles, and again, the 11-2, we go in cycles. It's all okay. Everything is going to be okay. And so with that, I don't think I have anything else. Thank you guys for being here with me. I thought one more thing I wanted to look at, but I'm getting nope. We are complete. So thanks again, and I'm wishing you guys so much love, and wanting everybody to find their way back to alignment. And so it is. So I will see you in the next video. Thank you again.